How much money do you need to have saved to spend $10,000 a month in retirement? In this episode, we go through all the details.
To learn more about how to secure your retirement and all the different elements you need to know, please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell so you'll be notified when we release episodes every Monday. We have helped hundreds of our clients gain clarity and get on the path to a great retirement. Now it's your turn. Let's dive in.
Welcome, everyone, to Secure Your Retirement podcast. Today, Merce and I have a topic that all people want to know is, and do I have enough money? And a lot of times people ask that question really from this context. How much money do I need in order to retire? And we get that all the time. Well, that question makes us always go back and say, well, it's very relative. How much money are you spending? Because that changes the dynamic in a lot of different ways. So I always tell people I've got clients who have $500,000 and they have a fantastic retirement because they don't spend much outside of whatever they're getting between Social Security and pensions. So they're never going to run out of money because they're not even touching their 500,000. Now I've got some other clients that might have $3 or $4 million and their portfolio or their outcome could have a little bit of question to it if they take as much money as they say they're going to take as they're leading up to retirement. So we have to be very careful how we ask that question. So what we thought we would do today is reverse engineer the question. So now we're going to say, if I want to spend $10,000 a month, how much money do I need? Very specific now. We've got something we can work with. A person tells us, hey, I want to spend $10,000 a month. So that would lead us to then, let's reverse engineer this and start breaking it down. Now, to give you context for this hypothetical family that we're going to break down, we're going to say that this is a couple. And again, we're making math easy here just because we're on a podcast. We're going to assume that they are both getting Social Security and that they are each getting $3,000 a month. So they're getting from Social Security $6,000 a month, but they want $10,000, right? So we've got a little shortfall there. And this is kind of like financial planning, retirement planning for us, what we do every single day. This exact scenario, this exact thing, what I'm describing is something we deal with every single day in our practice. So I think that, what we do is, it doesn't matter, to be honest with you, when somebody comes up and says, do you want to know my budget? Like, what are we spending money on? Honestly, it doesn't matter. If you know what you need in order to live and you say $10,000, we're never going to break that down into what categories it's going in. We will ask certain things like, is a part of that a mortgage? And the reason why we'll ask that is because a mortgage is fixed and we don't have to worry about inflation. So if a person says, I need $10,000 a month and my mortgage is $2,000, my principal and interest for that, well, then we're not going to inflate that 2,000. The 8,000 we're going to inflate to keep up with inflation. That's just a quick example. Okay. So now what we can do is let's kind of start to break this down a little bit, Merce. We've got our baseline here. They need 10,000. They're getting 6,000 from Social Security. Where do we go from here?
Yeah. So if they want 10,000 and 6 is coming in from Social Security every single month, well, that leaves us with a deficit of 4 that we have to start thinking about in a few different ways. One, where are we going to take money from? How are we going to continue to grow this money as we draw it? And then there's also going to be taxation and things that we need to think about there as well. For the purpose of this exercise, though, we're going to answer the question of, well, how do you even start to come up with the idea of how much money do I need to have banked to generate that $4,000 a month for a considerable period of time? We're talking 20, 30, 40 years, depending on when you retire. And there's also inflationary issues that we have to deal with and think through. Inflation, for the last 4 years or so, pandemic and post-pandemic, has been rather difficult to navigate for a lot of people. So you want to make sure that you have a plan in place that can react when we have inflationary environments like we do that we are still currently in. So the first thing, one of the rules of thumbs out there that I'm sure many of us have heard of, maybe don't fully understand, but it's a rule of thumb. That's the biggest thing I want to get across here is that it's not the answer. It's a guide to help you kind of start thinking about what the answer is, and that's the 4% rule. The 4% rule came around ages and ages ago around how do I come up with a withdrawal strategy, and the rule is that you try your best not to take more than 4% of your assets in a calendar year. So an easy example, if I have $1 million in the bank, in my investment accounts, 4% of $1 million is $40,000. That's kind of the number that I have to live off of for that year. So 40,000, divide that by 12, whatever that math comes to, that's my monthly usable amount every single month for that calendar year. And then the next year, let's say we took out the 40,000, and then maybe we had a good market year, and somehow it grew back to $1 million, or maybe even $1.1 million, and then you do 4% of that, and you continue to do that 4% rule. And the main backing of this rule is that, well, if we're only taking 4%, and we look at historicals on how money grows, particularly in the stock market, if we have 6-7% rates of return on our money and we're taking out 4% every year, well, simple math and logic would say if I'm making more than I'm taking out, I should be able to maintain my assets. But there are going to be periods of time here where we will have decisions to make. Let's say the market fell 20 or 30%, 38% like it did in 2008, or 50% across the 2002 debacle, right? That's where the 4% rule has been challenged a little bit. And is it still valid? All that to say is there are rules of thumbs out there, and we need to understand them. And we can use them absolutely for consideration. But let's go back to the main question. If I want to generate 10,000 a month for my retirement spending, 6 is coming in from Social Security between the couple. So we have a $4,000 a month deficit. We just back into the math. And so the answer under the 4% rule is that you would need to have a portfolio of about 1.2 million to reliably generate that 48,000 a year, or 4,000 a month. So that's the number, 1.2 million. Now, there is, because of that argument to the 4% rule, it's also been dropped. And some would make a very strong case for 3% or 3.5%. So if we go with 3.5%, again, all we're doing is backing into the math and saying, how much do I need to have to withdraw that 3.5%? It comes to 1.4 million, not 1.2 million. And that's going to hopefully, as a rule of thumb, generate us that 4,000 a month or 48,000 a year that we need to supplement Social Security, and to live the life that we want to start out living in retirement at that 10,000 a month.
Okay, so we've kind of gotten through the baseline here, and as you're listening to this, if you're super technical, you're going to start to say, well, is this net after taxes, or is this, where are we at in this? And all of those are great questions, because we didn't really set that up. We didn't say, did the person say they wanted net 10,000, or did they say they want gross 10,000? So for the purpose of this conversation, we're going to say they wanted $10,000. Now, we do need to think about taxes, okay? Because that all those numbers that Murs just went through, very different answer if the person says, I want a net 10,000, right? Because now why is that a different number? Well, I've got to pay taxes if I'm pulling, especially from an IRA. Now, if I'm pulling from an investment account, my taxation on that investment account is very different than the taxation on an IRA. Why is that? Well, if I've got an investment account, I might have a lot of long-term capital gains that are lower taxed, have lower taxes on them than if I take that money out of an IRA where I've got it all as ordinary income, to where it taxed like ordinary income. So I really want to think about, where am I pulling my money from? Some of our clients have done a wonderful job of converting their traditional IRA to Roth IRA. That means they have no tax on those distributions. So the whole thing here would change if we were building this plan out. Let's pretend that the person's got some money that they've got coming from their Social Security, like we said. They need that other $4,000. And let's say that 2,000 of that money is coming from their brokerage account, not IRA. 1,000 is coming from their traditional IRA, and 1,000 is coming from the Roth. Total different math. So as you can just hear us talking about this, it's kind of probably coming up in your mind, wait a minute, this is more than just doing simple math. We need to do a plan. And that's one of the things that we will talk about here in a little bit. Now, the other part of this equation that we've got to think about and put into practice is if I need 10,000 today in either category, however we're doing the math, I need to figure for inflation if I want to live the same way as I live today. Now, we have always ran for years our inflation factor at 3%. And we do that based on a 100-year average. There's going to be years in there where it's higher. There's going to be years in there where it's lower. And so let's don't get into that, what we think inflation it should be or is going to be. For this right now, we're just going to say we need to figure for inflation. All right. And then we can talk individually about what that inflation factor should be, but we need to make sure that we're kind of at least thinking about it. Now, another way to think about it is this way. Somebody might retire earlier in life, so let's say 60, 62, something like that, 65, and they go, I'm going to spend more now while I'm younger traveling than what I'm going to do when I'm older. So they say, I don't need to keep up with the $10,000 run rate in this example because I'm okay to let it pare back a little bit because I'm not going to travel as much. That's really basically saying I'm dealing with inflation. I'm spending a little bit more now and I'm going to spend less in the future. Now, we've got to go into our next topic, which is around market volatility. And I think you're going to handle that.
Yeah. So there's always risks to any plan that are put together, whether it's inflation or returns. Another big risk is going to be managing market volatility. So that's kind of what I just alluded to earlier in that scenario of, hey, I've got $1 million in my investment accounts and I'm taking 4%, which is 40,000. But what happens? What do I do in the year where the S&P falls 30%, right? And my $1 million now is 700,000, and 4% of 700,000 is 28,000. I need 40,000 to live the life that I want to live as an annual number, but now 4% of 700,000 has become 28,000. I've got a decision to make. Am I going to take my withdrawal rate up, i.e. ignore the 4% rule and take the 40,000 that I want? Or am I going to cut my budget? And am I going to live off of the 28 because that is the 4% rule? So we want to manage that. We want to try to avoid, there's this technical term in our world called sequence of returns risk. And that's what I was just describing, is that especially when you walk into retirement, right? Think about it when you were younger and you first started saving and your 10,000 became 50,000, your 50,000 became 100,000 over time, and that continued to grow. And you went through a period of times where it did lose 10%, it did lose 20%. But you're still working, you're still 20 years away from retirement. And so you probably weren't all that concerned. The idea being that, hey, I've got time, I'm still earning, I'm still saving, it's going to come back at some point. But when we walk into retirement and we're a couple years away from having no income, no earned income, no W-2, no salary, none of that, all it is what we have to work with. The last thing we want is to walk into retirement ready to withdraw on our money and we walk into a 20% sell off in the market and all of our money is exposed to that. So that's what sequence of returns risk. If we are drawing on a down asset, in particular in the beginning years of retirement, it makes it next to impossible to recover or get back to a break even. So if I have $1 million and that million, 2022 is a great case in point, by the way. The S&P fell right around 20%. So I've got $1 million and it fell 20% over a 12-month period. So just imagine every month it's falling, 1.5% or something like that. But on top of that, you're taking your $4,000 a month to live the life that you want to live. So you can start to see how our withdrawals plus the market falling starts to snowball on us. And now our withdrawal rate became rather large because of the market falling at the same time that we're withdrawing. So that's a big thing that we want to avoid. And we've come up with a great strategy, I believe, to to address sequence of returns risk, which if you've listened to us before, if you've talked to any of our clients, we talk heavily in this concept of the growth bucket and the safety bucket. And the one liner on each of those, the growth bucket is our risk money. That's our market money. It's going to go up and down, and that's going to usually make the most money, but we need to give it time to do that. That's the stock market. The safety bucket is our safe money. It's principal protected. It's going to earn somewhere in that 4 to 7% rate of return, bond-like return. The key, though, it's principal protected. So if we're drawing on our safety bucket, we know we're getting that $4,000 a month from that bucket. We know we're never worried about the market being down 30, 40, 50% from this bucket. If it is down, our risk money was affected by that, but we're not drawing on that. And that's what reduces or combats this idea of sequence of returns risk, which is a long thing that one major one that we have to plan for. The other is longevity. People are living longer and longer. And so when we're building out our plans, we do want to look at longevity in the family. We do want to build a plan that people are comfortable with. We also want to usually not spend our every single dollar by the age of 90 or 95 or 100, because there's a lot of things in between over the next 30 years that we have to plan for that we just don't know yet.
All right. So that really takes us to really the breakdown here, which is, as you can tell, there's a lot of different moving parts. We believe everybody should have their own personalized, very clear strategy and plan. And we try to put all those things together for our clients. In fact, we created what we call our peace of mind pathway. And if you think about it, we're on a path trying to get ourselves all the way to peace of mind. There's all these moving parts. How do we organize them? How do we get them so that they actually make sense? And so we have a structured approach to how we walk our clients through this. That structured approach is going to help them to be able to see exactly how they get to where they want to get to, all the different moving parts, how they fit together with the investment plan, the tax plan, the income plan, the healthcare plan, the estate plan, all of that packaged together so that they don't have to worry about any one aspect of this, and they can just go and live their retirement and have fun and focus on the things that they know are more important to them, which is usually their family and reaching some of the goals they have worked so hard for. So if you're listening to this and you think, man, I'd love to kind of go down this path and understand how this works, feel free to reach out to us. You can go to our website, pomwealth.net, top right-hand corner, click on schedule call, and our calendar will come right up. It'll be a 15-minute call. It'll be an introduction. And then if you want to continue the conversation, we're glad to do so. But we hope this has been beneficial. We probably have made you ask some questions, and that's good as well. Our goal, though, is to help you get to and through retirement with clear peace of mind. Have a good week. We'll talk to you again next Monday.
We hope this video has given you some confidence and clarity as you plan for a worry-free life in retirement. But what else do you need? We have created a complimentary video course called 3 Keys to Secure Your Retirement. This video walks you through step by step what you need to do to get ready for retirement. You can also check out our podcast called Secure Your Retirement. You can subscribe below.
For more retirement tips, check out these videos. Also, if you find them valuable, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and give us a like.